Our session for today. Ashish, could you change the next slide? A warm welcome to the academic year 2023-24. Next. Yes. So as we start this meeting, let us begin with a short prayer, invoking the Almighty to bless us all. I invite our manager, Sister Ansela, to lead us into prayer.
Lord, we come before you this evening and we ask your divine help. You know that we are about to make some important decisions that impact the lives of the children we serve. Let us keep their needs in the center of our thinking. You have blessed us with devoted parents in the community that care about their children's education. May our sharing be done with kindness as we respect those around us. Grant that within this group, there might be kind of attitude that will allow us to face our challenges as one body, caring for one another. Let our comments be for the common good. Bless everyone here, and we thank you for being with us. We make this prayer in your name. Amen.
A very warm welcome to all the parents gathered here at this school for this parent orientation session. And you may have a lot of questions in your mind, including who is this person? Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Dr. Amrita from GEMS Education and also from Cambridge Assessment and International Education. The Cambridge curriculum is what we will be discussing about. Why is international education important and here to stay? And how does our child actually gain from it is what we're going to be talking about today. Let's move forward, Kashish. Established back in 1858, since over 150 years, more than 1.5 centuries, Cambridge University has been providing exceptionally good education across the globe. It's the world's leading provider of international education for school-age group children. And there are over 10,000 schools across 160 countries that are availing of Cambridge international examinations. Our Carmelite convent is joining this journey, and it will be wonderful to provide this kind of education opportunity to our children in the town that we are in. And that's the idea. As sisters, they've always moved ahead with whatever is the most exciting new thing and what will be the right way to move forward for the children. And that this is another initiative in this direction. So we're going to be talking about this moving forward. Over 85% of the jobs that will be there in 2030, that's barely about 6 to 7 years from now, haven't even been invented yet. Change has been a constant, but the pace of change has actually changed dramatically now. So whatever we may be learning today is anyway mostly available at the click of a button. So why do we need children to actually spend so many years, critical years of their childhood into education, taking exams one after another? Knowledge, which is the click of a button today, will very soon be a chip in the head. What do they really need? How do we prepare them for a future that we, as responsible adults around, as their parents, as their teachers, do we really know what is the future that we are preparing them for? So to genuinely prepare them, we need to really prepare them enough to be able to distinguish between different kinds of information. There is a sea of misinformation, disinformation out there. To sieve through and to understand what really is genuine, what's incorrect, how to make sense of the world around them, how to adapt to consistent changes around them is what education really needs to be about. A lot of adapting is required, a lot of rethinking is required, and a lot of self-reflection, unlearning and relearning is required in the process. And children genuinely need to start taking ownership of their learning. Now, how do they learn to do this? Because unless they do this, they're not going to be able to evolve with the changing times. Let's move ahead. How do we do that? One key aspect is read, and read. Reading is at the heart of any kind of learning. Children are born curious. They are full of questions. They are always asking a whole host of questions. Very often I see adults telling a child, yes, this is all right. You may not get it right now. We'll talk about this later. But children do understand. They can make sense of almost everything in the world, given the right opportunity. We tend to take them lightly, but every generation is smarter than the previous one. And the wonder is that they do understand the world much more than us. They are much better adapted. Today, in terms of technology, well, they are born with it, and we are still finding our way through it. They may be learning a whole lot during play. It isn't just child's play. Really, that same child's play is much more than what it appears to be. So creativity and critical thinking are very central to today's learning. And that is where we begin the work. And that is one of the key reasons why we need to widen that horizon. We need to widen their perspective. And from the national education policy in India to every other education policy globally, internationally, education is transforming, and children need that international, global understanding of learning as the world becomes more and more a global village. Taking ownership of their learning can happen only when the uniqueness, the different abilities of each child are genuinely understood. When knowledge or the idea of sharing or disseminating knowledge or becomes an experience. It's not a sage on the stage where the teacher is talking from the stage or from a chair and the children are supposed to just listen to instruction. Gone are the days when we were able to do that or we could do that. It does not make sense to a child. The child today is very independent and should be so. They learn to walk much before they step into any school. They learn to talk, they acquire language much before they walk into any school. The human child is dependent when born, much more dependent compared to any other species. But this same human child does become the master of the species. Now, how does that happen really? This human child is born curious, born full of that growth mindset or that ability to learn. When your child is learning to walk, countless times they fall. They never falter on any fall. They just think of it as one effort that they tried and well, we need to try another and another and another. So this is the kind of learning experience that we try to bring together in the Cambridge curriculum. Moving ahead. Now, It's a broad and a balanced curriculum, which offers a whole lot of flexibility. There is a lot of choice that the children have within this program. And thanks to that, it's much better in India to be in a Cambridge curriculum. There are other international curricula also available. Very often the exams of the international curricula do not align with the Indian curricula exams. And therefore, in later stages, one doesn't need to worry about it right now in the primary years or the early years. But in later stages, after secondary, sometimes children start thinking that, okay, how will I take my competitive exams for Indian universities and colleges? Or there is a misnomer that you do international schooling only if you are thinking of moving into some international or outside of India. It's not necessary. Wherever you stay, the globe is one today. And whichever organization one may be working with today, global understanding or international know-how is like a basic understanding today. The very idea of literacy and numeracy, read, write, and arithmetic, as it used to be for us, has absolutely evolved. Now, today, we can't think of somebody as educated really if they do not have ICT literacy, if they do not understand citizenship, not just as national, but as global citizenship. If they really understand reading, writing, of course, but they, apart from that, actually genuinely also understand communication. These are all extremely critical, and one needs a kind of curriculum that provides a lot of choice, because each child is different, their likes, their ways of working, the kind of profiles they look into, how they would like to learn, how they would like to develop over the years. There is a lot of difference amidst children, and each one is unique, and in that uniqueness is really the worth, and it is a blessing. So we need to cherish it rather than make everybody walk like a narrow straight line. So that level of choice and flexibility is something that the Cambridge curriculum offers. It is a globally accepted qualification. Of course, across the globe, anywhere your child moves, people are going to recognize this qualification. From within Cambridge and also alongside Cambridge through Learning with Gems education, we provide a lot of support to all the schools who are a part of the program with us. Then a whole lot of resources, and also a big chunk of the assessment process is dealt with from the Cambridge point of view through schools. So whatever your child is learning in the same city, in your city, in this school, is coming through a full international community of researchers who are supporting everything very, very strongly. Moving forward, to understand the Cambridge pathway, children begin at the age of 3 and moving 3 to 5 in early childhood years. And thereafter, they move to primary, grades 1 to 5, primary, and then lower secondary, which is grades 6 to 8 in lower secondary, or what is commonly called middle school, and then upper secondary and Cambridge Advanced. Upper secondary is 9th and 10th, and Cambridge Advanced is grade 11 and 12, or what we call AS and A-levels in Cambridge. If a child has done a Cambridge program in the primary, later on, they can always move very easily to any curricula across the globe, including our Indian curricula. And similarly, if the child has moved from Cambridge early years to Cambridge primary, they are very well equipped for any program, any curricula. So the movability is not at all a concern, but the curriculum per se is divided into these qualifications. We have checkpoint assessments and various other assessments at every stage, and the schools make complete use of it. Everyone in the school gets trained in the Cambridge assessment process. Everyone's perspective on education absolutely transforms to become international in nature, to provide an education that ensures this kind of international mobility, employability, and actually hones the innate ability of every child to learn. and to continuously learn. Every child needs to be a lifelong learner today. Now, how do we make them that? That is what made possible through the Cambridge curriculum. Moving forward. This is the definition very much of what we call Cambridge learner. There's a learner profile. Look at. May I please request everybody to have the speakers on mute? Thank you. The learner profile for a Cambridge learner that we look at is they have to be confident. Whatever you do, confidence matters. Whatever you do, how you present it matters. And therefore, a Cambridge learner has to be confident. That is one of the first key attributes in the Cambridge learner profile that we are trying to develop, and the curriculum is designed to develop. They have to be responsible in action and respectful of others. Responsible in their own actions and respectful of others is very critical in today's day and age. I think that's the very purpose of education. They have to be reflective so that they are consistently thinking about how they are learning something, why is it some strategy working well and not so well for them, and how can they be moving forward. They are innovative and engaged. So confident, responsible, reflective, innovative, and engaged. That is the idea that we are looking at from a Cambridge learner. Okay, moving forward. Now, from early years to grade 3, that's what we are launching currently, as you may have seen in various published material. Now, in early childhood, very often parents feel that, well, in early years, what's the big deal? The child just has to learn A to Z, maybe some Hindi, and maybe some numbers, and so on and so forth. No, actually, there are 7, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 7 key learning areas in early childhood education. And the first 8 years of your child's life are actually the most critical time in your child's life. They'll never come back, and they are the most special. Now, why do we say that? It is these first 8 years of your child's life when the brain is developing. When the brain is not just developing, most of brain development actually happens during this time. And the brain is not just developing, it also means that all the benchmarks of association for a lifetime are forming in these first initial years. We all say that we love our mom's cooked meal, maa ke haath ka khana, as we say in India. We all love it. Why do we love it? When those benchmarks of quality for taste of food were forming for us, we were eating whatever our mothers served. No matter which part of the world we come from, wherever and whatever kind of food our mother cooked, that always remains the finest benchmark of quality in our head. It's similarly, the benchmark of quality, the benchmark or association of understanding and looking ahead and thinking begins at this age. All sorts of gross motor, when we talk of physical development, and all sorts of fine motor, small muscles, small movement, all coordinations, hand and eye, all coordinations begin at this age and settle in the brain at this age. All coordinations of, we don't just learn through our brain, we learn through our entire body. If you're learning how to drive, you read a manual, you take a test, you learn everything about the car. Can you really drive? No. We will have to get onto the wheel. We will have to be there driving, actually. And over a period of time, we may not be thinking about which gear it is, what needs to be done, and so on. It is part of what is called the psycho from here, and the motor, the action, the muscular or the body action. So the psychomotor is very critical. And these psychomotor signal assessments of the body begin at this age. So the most critical years of your child are spent in nursery, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. These are the classes when your child is in that age, when everything which will define their life, which will define how they think, what they value, what they do not care about so much, how they lead their life, all of that, how successful they become in their futures or as human beings, all of that is determined pretty much in these first 8 years of life. So it's very, very critical to ensure that the child gets the right kind of education around this time. They have to be equipped in all of these 7 key learning areas. Now, of course, literacy is one key learning area. Mathematics, we all know.
Krisha,
And what about mathematics? It can't be just, okay, we learn counting, we learn numbers. Now, have we learned counting really? If I ask a child, how many, let's say, how many sides does this have? How many sides would this have? The child should say, you can respond on the chat box. What should the child say? How many sides would this have? Come on. I think the chat box, everyone can write on. How many sides does this object have? Okay. Somebody said 5. All right. Somebody says 3. Okay. It's pretty much a triangle. All right. Okay. I'll give another object. Now, how many sides does this have? Okay. 4. How did we count? We said 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. If you ask children, very often children will tell you that I know counting. I can count till 100 or I can count till 1,000. They may have rote learned counting. That's not really learning counting. But when I ask the same child to tell me how many sides this has, they will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this has 10 sides. And it could be done to any object. Now, has this child really learned the idea or the concept of counting, or has just rote learned the number? The child knows that to stop at 10. And therefore, there we go. Mathematics or numeracy is a skill again. And very often by the later years, many children start feeling that maths is tough, but the root begins here. The problem begins here. The times tables are also often just rote learned. Now, that is not the way to go for times tables. There are systems of understanding them also. And that concept clarity is extremely critical at this stage more than ever. Communication and language is taken as a whole separate skill area. It's not just a part of literacy. Reading, phonics is one aspect of literacy, and communicating that confidently is very, very critical, another aspect of literacy. Expressive arts and design, we often don't pay that much attention to the creative side of ourselves. No innovation is ever possible unless the right as well as the left brain work together. We need logic, obviously, for any kind of innovation. And we need understanding of the world. We need logical clarity. But at the same time, we also need the creative side of the brain to combine the two thoughts and therefore come up with innovative ideas. That thinking outside of the box that is often spoken about will not happen unless the expressive arts and design aspect of our thinking is not well developed. And that, again, is very critical in terms of development at this stage. Understanding the world, it's not about understanding just the here and now. Understanding the local dynamics of the world around me, as well as the very large geopolitical and wider dynamics of the larger world, the planet and beyond, and the universe and so on. That understanding the world is also a very, very key aspect of the early years foundation stages. We used to have in India also the early years foundation stages of the EYFS curriculum framework followed very much. Now we also have even in India, the NCF for foundation stages has been launched recently. And that's also beautifully aligned to the EYFS curriculum framework, which has been in UK for quite some years now. One very critical area for development again is personal, social, and emotional development. It's extremely important for children to see and perceive and understand their own emotions, to be self-aware, to be able to interact with others confidently, to be able to understand or empathize with their fellow students, with people around them, with adults around them, and their peers, to be able to learn the idea or the concept of compassion and value and respect everyone around them. Also, to see that it's okay to be sad, that we do feel certain emotions, and it's okay to have those emotions. Very few children have the advantage today of having grandparents with them, of listening to those stories from grandparents, or having large families around them, lots of children and cousins and so on to play with, very layered family structures around them. Most children today are living in nuclear families. There is barely one sibling or so, and mostly adults who are very busy with their own work routines. So what should children really do in terms of how do we expect them to this ownership of development of personal, social, and emotional development has also therefore moved on to schools and to the curriculum. And very critical focus is needed in this area also. There are various frameworks for like the Castle framework, like the UNESCO's EMC Square framework, and so on, which are working in this direction. But we take up the earliest foundation stages, and that is integrated beautifully in the curriculum. Moving forward, when we move to primary, the subjects transform a little. That means from grade 1, the subjects become more of English and mathematics. Creative arts and design still remains. Science is very, very important. It is definitely there. And global perspectives, which we introduce as a subject. New computing is again as important today as English or mathematics or science. We know that's become one of the primary skills again. Physical education, no education is ever complete without proper gross and fine motor development. So that education continues. They have to remain healthy and fit. So that fitness is very, very critical for their holistic development alongside an understanding of all these other aspects of the curriculum. Music and theater are beautifully integrated again in all of these aspects. Moving ahead. This is what parents have often said about the Cambridge curriculum, that they find their child very curious. They find their child really, really creative. And that is what they see making an impact on the success of their child. As we said earlier, a Cambridge learner is confident, responsible, and actually creative and innovative. All of these attributes are very much seen by parents of various children studying in the Cambridge curriculum. Moving forward. Assessments are an integral aspect of learning and teaching. Gone are the days when we would say, and especially at this age, when we would only be dependent on summative style of assessments, as in where parents get a syllabus and then there's something to be done or studied and then prepared or crammed or rote learned, and then they have to take an exam. No, assessment is a continuous process. So there is a lot of formative assessment that is embedded into the system. After working on anything, children look at their own work. There's a lot of self-assessment. So they look at what went well, what could be even better, and how. What have I done well here? What is working out? What have I understood properly? What is it that's still lacking? They work with their peers to understand this. They work collaboratively. The space in a Cambridge classroom is really collaborative and a space where everybody feels free to share their thoughts and ideas and share what they feel is working well for them. And if a strategy needs to change, the children talk about it. That kind of independence or driving their own learning is something that is coming also through the assessment process, because assessment is an everyday thing. The teacher is observing every skill development, and as they progress, the data is being recorded. There's a lot of everyday assessments. more of assessment than evaluation that is happening. And yes, there are summative tests also. We call them primary progression tests, or there are checkpoints at the end of grade 3, grade 5, grade 8, and various other steps. And of course, there are the board exams that children take at the end of secondary and senior secondary and so on. Moving forward. Let's explore deeper, reach higher, and think bigger, and ensure that our children are ready for the world. Thank you so much. We really hope you enjoy the Cambridge curriculum with us and the style of learning with the Cambridge curriculum with our students. Over to you, sister.